This is the Dive Into Discovery podcast, where curiosity meets insight, and every conversation uncovers a new layer of understanding.
Welcome to today's Dive Into Discovery. We're your hosts, Theo and Alex. Today we're taking a trip back in time to ancient China to explore a discovery that rewrote history, the Terracotta Army.
It is one of those finds that captures the imagination. Thousands of life-size soldiers, each one unique, standing guard for centuries. It's a glimpse into a world we're still piecing together.
Okay, for those of us who need a refresher, can you set the scene? What exactly is the Terracotta Army, and how was it discovered?
Imagine this. It's 1974, and farmers in Xi'an, China are digging a well. Suddenly they hit something hard, not just a rock, but fragments of terracotta. Turns out they stumbled upon one of the greatest archaeological finds of the 20th century. It was the beginning of the excavation of over 8,000 terracotta figures, an entire army complete with horses, chariots, and weapons, all buried alongside China's first emperor.
Wow, that's an incredible story. So we're talking about the first emperor of China. Who was this guy, and why did he need an army in the afterlife?
His name was Qin Shi Huang, and he was quite the ambitious ruler. He unified China in the 3rd century BCE, creating the Qin dynasty. He's also credited with major projects like standardizing the writing system and beginning the construction of the Great Wall. Clearly, he wasn't afraid of thinking big.
So it sounds like he had a bit of an ego. Did he just want to take his power with him to the afterlife?
Well, it's more complex than that. The ancient Chinese had elaborate beliefs about the afterlife, a complex underworld where spirits continued their roles and hierarchies from their earthly lives. Qin Shi Huang, being the emperor, clearly intended to rule in the afterlife as he did in life.
I can see why you'd need an army for that.
Yeah.
But it's not just any army, right? You said each soldier was unique. What's so special about these figures?
The level of detail is astonishing. Each soldier has distinct facial features. Hairstyles, armor styles, even their expressions are different. It's like they were trying to capture the individuality of each soldier. And they did this on a massive scale.
Hold on, over 8,000 unique sculptures. How did they even manage that? Was there some ancient 3D printing technology we don't know about?
Not quite. While they didn't have 3D printers, the craftsmanship and organization involved were still incredible. Scholars believe they used a combination of standardized molds and hand finishing. They had a set of basic facial archetypes, which were then customized with individual details. And remember, these statues were originally painted in vibrant colors, making them even more lifelike.
It's mind-boggling. Imagine the manpower and artistry that went into this project. But I have to ask, what about the tomb itself? Is it true that it's still unopened?
Yes, the emperor's actual tomb remains a sealed vault, and there's a lot of speculation about what lies inside. Ancient texts describe a lavish tomb filled with treasures, and even celestial models replicating the heavens.
I bet. It's like something out of an Indiana Jones movie. Are there any plans to excavate it anytime soon?
Not that I've heard. The challenges are immense. There are historical accounts mentioning booby traps and rivers of mercury, which, by the way, have been confirmed by soil tests. Plus, there's the issue of preserving the artifacts once they're exposed to the air. It's a delicate balance between the desire for discovery and the responsibility of preservation.
That makes sense. It's not something you want to rush into. But back to the soldiers. Their weapons were real, right? Were they intended for actual combat, even in the afterlife?
There were indeed real bronze weapons, and while their primary purpose was likely symbolic, the craftsmanship is remarkable. They even used chromium oxide on some, an early form of rust prevention. The use of chromium oxide is particularly interesting. It wasn't rediscovered as a rust preventative in the West until the 20th century.
Why, that suggests a level of technological sophistication we're only beginning to understand. But all this focus on the emperor and his grand plans. It's easy to forget about the people who actually built this incredible monument. What do we know about the workers who brought the Terracotta Army to life?
It's a question that haunts archaeologists and historians. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of laborers working for decades. Historical records suggest that many were conscripted, forced into service by the emperor.
So not exactly a dream job. What kind of conditions did they work under?
It was grueling labor. Imagine moving tons of earth-shaping and firing thousands of clay figures all under immense pressure to meet the emperor's demands. Archaeological findings paint a picture of a massive, organized operation. We've found tools, kilns, even living quarters that provide glimpses into their daily lives.
It's hard to fathom the scale of this project. Do they all work in one giant workshop, or were there multiple sites?
Think of it more like an ancient industrial complex. There were different workshops specializing in different tasks, sculpting, firing, painting, even making the weapons. And each workshop had its own hierarchy and organization.
It sounds like Qin Shi Huang was obsessed with control and standardization, not just in his empire, but even in his afterlife preparations.
That's a keen observation. He standardized weights, measures currency, even the written script. And that same drive for order is evident in the Terracotta Army. It wasn't just a random collection of figures, it was a meticulously planned and executed project.
Speaking of planning, how were the soldiers arranged? Was it just a chaotic jumble, or was there some logic to their formation?
The arrangement is anything but chaotic. The soldiers are deployed in battle formations reflecting the actual military tactics of the Qin army. You can see different types of infantry, archers, charioteers, all positioned strategically, just as they would have been on a real battlefield.
So it's like a frozen moment in time capturing the military might of the Qin dynasty.
Yeah.
But if the army was meant for the afterlife, why bother with realistic formations? Were they expecting some kind of otherworldly battle?
It's a good question, and one that leads us deeper into the ancient Chinese understanding of the afterlife. They believed that the spirit world mirrored the earthly realm in many ways. So it makes sense that the emperor would want his afterlife army to be as formidable and well-organized as his earthly one.
It's like he was preparing for a continuation of his reign, but on a different plane of existence. It's both fascinating and a little eerie. But we've talked a lot about the soldiers and the emperor. What about the other figures found at the site?
The Terracotta Army is just one part of a much larger necropolis. Excavations have uncovered pits containing terracotta acrobats, musicians and officials suggesting that the emperor intended to have a full entourage in the afterlife.
A full entourage. So he wasn't planning on roughing it in the afterlife. It sounds more like he was trying to recreate his entire court.
Yeah.
What does that tell us about how he viewed death and the afterlife?
It suggests a belief in a continuation of earthly pleasures and hierarchies in the afterlife. The emperor wasn't just a ruler, he was also a patron of the arts and a connoisseur of entertainment. It seems he wanted to ensure those aspects of his life continued even after death.
It's amazing how much we can learn about a civilization's beliefs and values through their funerary practices. It's like looking through a window into their worldview.
Absolutely. The Terracotta Army and the entire necropolis are a testament to the ancient Chinese fascination with the afterlife and their elaborate preparations for it. But remember, what we see today is only a fraction of what was originally there.
Wait, what do you mean? Was the site damaged or looted at some point?
Unfortunately, yes. After Qin Shi Huang's death, there were rebellions and uprisings against his rule. During the fall of the Qin dynasty, some of that anger was directed at his burial complex. Historical records suggest that parts of the necropolis were looted and burned, and many of the soldiers were damaged or destroyed.
That's heartbreaking. It's like a piece of history was lost forever. But it also highlights the fragility of power and the enduring consequences of actions, even after death.
It does, and it adds another layer of complexity to the story of the Terracotta Army. It's not just a monument to imperial power, it's also a testament to the turmoil and upheaval that followed Qin Shi Huang's reign. It's a reminder that history is never simple, and even the grandest monuments are subject to the forces of time and human actions.
This is also fascinating. I can see why you've dedicated your career to studying this. But I have one final question. We've talked about the history, the artistry, the cultural significance. What do you think is the most enduring legacy of the Terracotta Army?
For me, it's the window it provides into a vanished world. It's a tangible connection to a civilization that existed over 2,000 years ago. We can see their faces, their clothes, their weapons. We can learn about their beliefs, their fears, their hopes. The Terracotta Army is a reminder that even though these people lived in a different time and a different place, they were human beings just like us, with their own stories to tell.
And those stories continue to unfold as we learn more about the Terracotta Army and the world that created it. It's a testament to the enduring power of human creativity and our endless fascination with the past.
Exactly. The Terracotta Army is a gift that keeps on giving. Every new discovery, every piece of research adds to our understanding of this remarkable civilization. And who knows what secrets still lie buried waiting to be uncovered.
Okay, I have to ask.
Yeah.
You've spent years studying this. What are some of the things that still baffle you? What are the mysteries that keep you up at night?
That's a great question. I guess the biggest mystery is the unopened tomb itself. It's like a giant question mark hanging over the entire site. What treasures lie hidden within? What can they tell us about Qin Shi Huang and his worldview?
Yeah, it's like the missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But until that gets figured out, what are some of the other mysteries that are still being explored?
Well, one area that's particularly intriguing is the question of foreign influence. There's growing evidence that the Qin dynasty had contact with cultures from the West through trade routes like the Silk Road. Some scholars believe we can see traces of that influence in the Terracotta Army, particularly in the hairstyles and clothing of some figures.
So the Terracotta Army might not be a purely Chinese creation. That adds a whole new layer of complexity and intrigue. It makes you wonder what other cultural exchanges were happening at the time.
Exactly. And it speaks to the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations, even those separated by vast distances. The Terracotta Army might be a product of a globalized world just like our own, in ways we're only beginning to understand.
That's amazing to think about. It really challenges the idea that ancient cultures were isolated from each other. But even as we uncover these connections, there are still so many questions about the army itself. For instance, how did they achieve that incredible level of realism in the sculptures? Was it all down to skill, or were there some secret techniques involved?
That's something that continues to fascinate researchers. We know they used molds, but there had to be more to it than that. The subtle variations in facial features, the lifelike poses, the incredible detail in the clothing and armor. It suggests a mastery of anatomical observation and artistic technique that's truly remarkable.
You mentioned earlier that the statues were originally painted. What can you tell us about those colors and how they were applied?
Well, that's another area where we're still learning. We know they used mineral pigments, and traces of those colors have been found on some of the figures. But sadly, much of the paint has been lost due to exposure to the elements.
Is there any way to recreate those original colors?
Scientists are working on it. They're analyzing the pigment traces and using advanced techniques to reconstruct the original palette. Imagine seeing the Terracotta Army in its full glory with all its vibrant colors. It would be like stepping back in time.
That would be breathtaking. It's incredible how technology is helping us to not just uncover the past, but also to experience it in new ways.
It really is. And as technology advances, who knows what other secrets we might be able to unlock? Maybe one day we'll even be able to digitally reconstruct the entire necropolis, including the Emperor's tomb, allowing people to explore it virtually.
That would be amazing. It'd be like bringing the past to life. But even without those futuristic tools, the Terracotta Army continues to capture our imagination. It's a reminder of the power of human creativity, the grandeur of ancient civilizations, and the endless mysteries that lie hidden beneath the earth.
Well said. It's a testament to the enduring allure of history and the importance of preserving and studying these incredible sites for future generations.
So to wrap things up, if someone was going to see the Terracotta Army for the first time, what would you tell them to look out for? What details should they pay attention to?
Well, first take a moment to just absorb the sheer scale of it. Thousands of life-size figures standing in formation. It's a sight that truly takes your breath away. Then as you get closer, start paying attention to the details, the facial expressions, the hairstyles, the armor, the weapons. Each soldier is a unique individual, and you can see the artistry and skill that went into creating them. And finally, try to imagine them in their original glory with vibrant colors and all the details that have been lost to time. It's a glimpse into a world that's both familiar and utterly alien, and it's an experience you won't soon forget.
That's fantastic advice. The Terracotta Army is a reminder that the past is never truly gone. It's still there, waiting to be discovered, explored, and brought to life in our imaginations. And who knows what future discoveries await? The story of the Terracotta Army is still being written, and we're all part of it.
Exactly. It's a journey of discovery that never truly ends.
What did you think of this week's episode? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to join us next time as we dive even deeper. And as always, stay curious, because you never know what discoveries are just around the corner.